Hello, I'm Sammy.
I'm Marques.
Welcome to the World News. Today's special segment is industrialization and the Gilded Age. And to start it off, we're going to talk about the major inventions of the 1800s. For example, one of the great inventions made by Sammy Morris, the inventor of the Morse code, has developed the first telegraph. As we all know, the Pony Express, the distance mail service in the West, is no longer needed because the telegraph has allowed us to send messages across the country to people practically through the air. And another great invention by another great inventor is Thomas Edison and the light bulb. The light bulb is going to change and revolutionize the way that we do things at night. Over time, we've been using candles and lanterns and different things to light, but with the light bulb, we are able to see things at night through electricity that runs all throughout our house. Thomas Edison has spent years and years trying to invent this, and he finally has installed it. And one of his biggest inventions is the street lighting system in New York City. The street lighting system is going to allow for cars and many other things to be used during the night when before everything was too dark, and that would not be a possibility. And on to Marques about the economy.
Thanks, Sammy. Now on to the poor farmers. Cotton is at its low, selling 3 cents per pound. And as you know, farmers cannot live off of that. So,
Between 1870 and 1895, farm prices plummeted. Cotton, which sold for about 15 cents a pound in the early 1870s, sold for only about 6 cents a pound. The mid-1990s, corn and wheat prices declined nearly as rapidly. Farmers blamed big businesses, especially the railroads and the banks, for their difficulties. They protested the railroads as monopolies charged whatever rates they wanted. But, as we know, those big businesses also had some problems. Oliver H. Kelly, a Minnesota farmer, businessman, journalist, and government clerk, created the group called Grange, and they protested it against all big businesses so that the small farmers can have a way out. They can also get the money. They became an alliance, reform organizations. This alliance formed a cooperative to collectively sell their crops, and they called on to the federal government to establish sub-treasuries. That's it from me. On to Shaq.
Thanks, Marcus. And today we're talking about African Americans and how they're losing their freedoms in the South. The South have really stepped up with the Jim Crow laws. Literacy tests have been really... Since federal troops are not there to protect African Americans' well-being, it allows Southern governments to pass Jim Crow laws and enact poll taxes and literacy tests and grandfather clauses. All these want to keep black people from voting. And even though these laws are being passed, many white people are still being very violent to black groups in order for them not to go vote. Even still, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Jim Crow laws, like in court case Plessy versus Ferguson. Many people like Ida B. Walls bought newspapers and named it the Free Speech. And she wrote in these papers about all the injustices in the South today. Booker T. Washington also advocated for vocational education, and many of the times him and Webb Du Bois butted heads. They pretty much wanted the same thing. Webb Du Bois really wanted to get fair treatment now and then, but Booker T. Washington thought it would have been better for the black people to wait and for them to learn more other things than what Webb Du Bois was talking about. During this time, while all this was happening in the South, many racial injustices were also happening in the West. Chinese immigrants faced much prejudice with the Chinese Exclusion Act being passed in California, and Mexican Americans also felt discriminated against because all their lands was taken by ranchers, and with the Hidalgo Treaty passed, many lost their land. With their land being taken, they really did not have an income, and so this formed groups like Los Gorras Blancas, which targeted many of those ranch owners. Thanks. Now sending it over to Diego.
Thanks, Shaq. Hi, my name is Diego Guijarro, and I'm going to be telling you about the politics. We have corrupt presidents, the spoil system.
Politics. Neither party controlled the Congress
for more than 2 years, and elections were won by very slim margins, which made it very difficult for either party to pass legislation. Corrupt presidents like Grover Cleveland, Rutherford B. Hayes, and Benjamin Harrison abused the spoils system to put their friends in important political offices. Fortunately, the Pendleton Civil Service Act fixed this problem by creating standards for people to receive these important jobs. We also have problems with inflation because of tariffs on foreign goods, which increased prices. Gold bugs and silverites debate over whether using the gold standard or silver standard to back our money. Gold is favored by wealthier people like industrialists and bankers, while the silver standard was favored by poor people like farmers.
Thanks, Diego. And I'm going to be talking about the organized labor movement. There are a bunch of problems with the wages and working conditions, and this led to many riots.
On May 4th, protesters gathered at Haymarket Square in Chicago. The diverse crowd included anarchists or radicals opposed to all government. The cause of this riot was a campaign to help achieve the 8-hour workday. After this riot, the Americans became very weary to hire anyone who was a part of a labor union. The Knights of Labor were blamed for this riot, and their membership was declined. The next famous riot was the Homestead Strike. Economic depression led to cuts in steel workers' wages, and this angered a bunch of workers. Resulting in riots, the militia was called, and people lost their lives. The last famous strike was the Pullman Strike. The Pullman Palace Car Company, which produced luxury railroad cars, laid off workers and reduced wages by 25%. Inventor George Pullman, who owned the company, required workers to live in the company town near Chicago and controlled their rents and the prices of goods. In May, workers sent a delegation to negotiate with Pullman. He responded by firing 3 workers and shutting down the plant. As a result, the workers turned to the American Railway Union, led by Eugene V. Debs. By June of 1894, nearly 300,000 railroad workers had walked off their jobs. The Pullman strike escalated, halting both railroad traffic and mail delivery. Railroad owners cited the Sherman Antitrust Act in its argument that the union was illegally disrupting free trade. On July 4th, the President Grover Cleveland sent in federal troops ending the strike. When he refused the government's order to end the strike, Debs was imprisoned for conspiring against interstate commerce. The outcome of these strikes ended in employers trying to appeal to their employees. The federal government also enacted acts that helped workers gain the equality they needed. Now over to you, Taliesen.
Thanks, Makie. I'll be talking about the rise of big business, with investors taking advantage of
our expanding market. Investors have developed a new form of group ownership for business, known as a corporation. With it, a number of investors share ownership of a business, so that during economic hardships they can only lose as much as they initially invested. It also allows for the funding of new technology and larger facilities, leading to higher production rates. While this is mostly positive, some corporations have attempted to take control of their markets and eliminate competition, creating a monopoly. While illegal to directly buy out competition, businessmen such as John D. Rockefeller have taken advantage of trusts in order to achieve a similar effect. In turn, we've been hurt by higher prices and have also seen a decline in small businesses. At the same time, these so-called captains of industry, such as Vanderbilt, Carnegie, and Rockefeller, have developed many new and efficient business practices. These business leaders have also funded the creation of universities, museums, and libraries. Regardless, our Senate has recently created the Interstate Commerce Commission and passed the Sherman Antitrust Act, taking the first much-needed steps towards regulating the power of corporations and outlawing any trusts that restrained trade as well as commerce.
And that wraps up tonight's show. I'm Makie.
I'm Sammy.
I'm Diego.
I'm Marques.
I'm Shaq.
We hope you enjoyed.
How should I start it, like?
Alright, you're good whenever.
Thanks, Sammy. Now, about the farmers and their populism. The prices are very low. Cotton's only selling 3 cents per pound, and the farmers are...
Yeah, you were doing really well.
My phone went off.
And to start, we're going to talk about the major inventions of the 1800s.
Crap.